Welcome to another episode of Connecting with the Toms. I'm Julie, a trauma-informed movement specialist.
Wow.
And today we're going to be talking about detoxes and all the ins and outs about it. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to talk about, or Dad, I'm going to have you define what is a detox, and then we'll dive into should we be doing it or should we not. So what's a detox? I know it's not your favorite word.
It's not my favorite word because it's actually it's one we're going to have to use throughout this because it's the word that most people are familiar with. If you look up the word detox or detoxification in the dictionary, it'll basically say something like to make something less toxic. And I guess theoretically we could say if you do a detox of your body, you're making less toxic. So that will make it appropriate. So the organ that we're really talking about for detox is the liver because it's the responsibility of the liver with its 500 functions that it does in our body to basically take product, anything that you ingest, that you drink, that gets inside the body, however it gets there, through the skin or through your mouth or vaginally or rectally, however it gets in. The liver has to have a look at it. And the liver going through biochemical processes and, basically will remove ions and add electrons and do a variety of different types of things to change that particular product into something that the body will either utilize because it needs it, or it will eliminate it or move it to the elimination organs, most specifically the lung, the bladder, the kidney bladder, and obviously the digestive system. So when people talk about, I'm going to do a detox, what they typically are thinking about, oh, I've just been through the winter. Or let's go back to it. I've just been through Christmas, and I ate too much and I didn't eat the right food. And maybe I drank the alcohol that I normally would have. And I have these extra 5 pounds. How do I get rid of these 5 pounds? I'm going to do a detox in order to try and drop that particular weight of what we're doing. So there's 101 different ways of doing that. Every company, you go on the internet, just put in methods of detoxification, and you're going to find, everybody has their favorite. This lemon water, cayenne, to the grapefruit diet, to don't eat, do water fast, to do juice fast, to do colonics, to do saunas, to sweat. And they're all important and they're all part of it. And so, we can look at individual parts. But the most important thing, as we said in a previous podcast, detoxification is something that is happening right now as you're sitting there or listening wherever you're listening, because the liver is always active. And the liver's 100% responsibility is to make sure that what you just ate with your last meal is truly all necessary. And, if you ate a whole food organic diet, we're going to assume that virtually everything in that diet is basically utilizable by the body. However, if you went to McDonald's or had a fast food meal, we know, and that there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that really has nothing to do with nutrition, just has something to do with taste and has something to do with preservatives. The body looks at that and says, what the hell is that? That's not, that your brain cells are not going to need that. In fact, it may create a problem in your brain. So let's break that down. Let's put it through the liver. Let the liver break it down so we can effectively and easily eliminate it. So detox is an ongoing 24/7 process every day of your life, literally from that moment of conception for what's going on. So we'll use that as a starting.
But it could also be considered like a cleanse. So what we're talking about is it's springtime right now as we're recording this, and in the spring a lot of people talk about they want to do, like you're talking about, like a 3-day weekend, cleanse or a juice cleanse, like the lemon juice, cayenne pepper or whatever, or they just eat like I know there's one I've tried before, and it's like 5 days of eating vegetables and whatnot. Before we get into that, so what are the type of symptoms that I should consider doing a cleanse or a detox?
I think the obvious symptoms that most people experience is and why they do it is weight loss. you have an anniversary coming up, you have a wedding coming this summer, you want to fit into a dress that you can't fit into right now, or a mat you can't fit into the slacks that you typically have been wearing. So how do I quickly, without starving myself, what do I do to rapidly be able to lose a few pounds, to look a little bit better for whatever this special event is that people are attempting to do. So this cleanse is generally a short-term type thing for most people. It does get a rapid result. With symptoms, the main symptom is this mental symptom, usually when people will ask about it. But then we have these other symptoms that people realize is that maybe they're getting more skin breakouts, or maybe they're getting more headaches, or their joints are sore when they weren't sore before, that type of thing, or they're getting acne outbreaks. And when I'm getting acne, I'm 52 years old. I probably be getting acne. That's a teenage thing. They have a sense that something is off, or a woman who's menstruating, her menstrual cycle suddenly is changing, saying something's off here. Maybe my hormones are not in balance, and maybe to get a reset. One way to approach that would be to do this. We use the word cleanse slash. It's the same purpose when people are typically doing it. Usually it's less than 2 weeks. Often it's 3 or 5 days, just to jumpstart something that they would like to get an immediate result, for whatever it is, the reason that they're wanting to start.
Okay, so like congestion in the sinus congestion could be a one. Like if you're someone that bloats, really easily after you eat, could that be a reason why I'd want to cleanse? Or just the fact that it's like I've been hibernating for 4 months and I'm getting ready for spring, so I just want to purge some of the stuff that's been hiding inside of me.
I just heard today that something like 25% of the U.S. population has allergies. So, one of the ways that you can decrease the misery that you get with allergies, regardless of whether you have high symptoms, low symptoms, scratchy throat, breathing problems, they're typical, your environmental allergy stuff. The more you can lighten your load, our last bad case you mentioned, we all have a bucket that we're born in. The bucket fills up, and if you can decrease some of your bucket, open the spigot and drain some of that out. When you do get exposed to the allergens of the pollens and stuff that have come out, we know what that will do. It will allow your body to be more tolerant. Where in previous year you may have suffered miserably with these allergies, this year you say, "Oh, they're not so bad." But yet, Environmental Canada or Environmental US say, "Oh no, the allergies are really, really high in your area because in Arizona, people, you get allergies." Yeah, we actually had a great winter here because we actually, believe it or not, got some rain, and we have lots of wildflowers which grow in the desert here. And so we actually have a lot of pollen, and they've been talking about allergies and, where I am and here in Phoenix, for the last 2 weeks, saying, "Oh yeah, the pollen count's really high and people are suffering from their allergies." So, you know, breaking that cycle and dumping some of that stuff out of your pocket, it was would literally be a good way to start allergy season and not be so miserable.
Okay, so what would you suggest I do? So is there a particular cleanse or detox that you do recommend?
The first question always is what are you willing to do? Some people are willing to truly do, a true fast, and not from a religious perspective, but a true fast. It's like, well, I won't eat. I said, okay, and what do you think that will do? Well, it means I won't have to digest things, which is true, and the body will have the ability to remove some more of the stuff that's in the bucket, because usually when the bucket is full, it doesn't have the opportunity ultimately to do that. So I do recommend, I don't recommend water fasts unless you're in a supervised clinic, I'll say, where you're actually being watched. There's a well-known clinic in California that basically, does only water, but you're clinically supervised. This is people, they're doing literally, they're cleansing off, not talking hardcore, I'm just talking like blood pressure medicine or whatever medication they typically pain meds that they feel they can't get off, and they do a water fast to literally reset their entire metabolism. And it's very effective when it is supervised, because that's a very scary situation, because when you're doing water fasts, like what's happening to your protein, what's happening to your hormone, what's happening to your blood sugar, what's happening to your blood pressure, etc. So it needs to be carefully monitored, and it is well-known clinic. People have great results from doing that. Some people, detox or cleanse may simply be, just change your diet, just eat less, eat really simple foods, eat maybe eat steamed vegetables, eat pull some poultry, maybe some fish. Eat no refined foods, eat very minimal, if any, carbs. Obviously, no artificial things. Drink herbal teas. Hydrate yourself well. All those are well known. And then you have supervised cleanses, if you like, where you buy product X. You can look on, on Amazon or on Google, on the internet, that will say this product has been used, and then it's a powder. They usually mix in a juice of some type that has its full nutrients, and it takes the load off your digestive system, so you don't have to spend as much energy into digestion. So people will typically, after that, will say, "Oh, my energy is better." Yeah, because you didn't spend all your energy just digesting, your typical meal. Doing it is what you're doing. So whether you do a water fast, which is once again only under clinical supervision, or a juice fast that people can do with some supervision, but you're still getting some good nutrition there, generally, or you buy a product, put that in some type of a juice or solution. That's a way of lightening your load also. Those are some of the simplest ways for people to try it.
So I know you've talked about time of year. There are better times to do a cleanser detox. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The better time of year is, from a straight digestive aspect, at least people here in the northern hemisphere, is our summer months. Because, we know that typically in the summer we eat lighter, we eat more fresh foods going on, because they're easier to digest. Because, when your body is dealing with the heat of the summer, especially where I am, when it will be 110 degrees come July, sweating is a natural way that we eliminate things. And if we're eating heavier meals, the body has to focus all its energy for the couple of 3 hours after eating that meal in your digestive system. We don't have the efficient ability to sweat, eliminate things as efficiently as possible. So the worst time to do it is, January, at least in the northern hemisphere, because it's cold, you're indoors, you're wearing more clothes, your body can't really, eliminate through all the effective pathways that ultimately you would like them to do. So I would say more warmer climates, warmer days are a preferred time to do it, because you can be incorporating these other natural ways for the body ultimately to cleanse itself.
So to build on the elimination part. So there's three ways to really eliminate toxins from your body. You can breathe it out, which we haven't talked about, but you can pee it out, or you can sweat it out, like you just said. So are you aware of, I know of some, there's a couple people that I know of that have gone to these breathing seminars, I guess you can say, or breathing workshops or retreats, whatever you want to call it. And it helps them with detox. Have you heard about these things?
The silent retreats where you do yoga.
Yeah.
Yoga, obviously, is the biggest thing about yoga, more than the poses, is learning how to breathe properly. And I would say, probably is the origination of the effectiveness of yoga. Just, watching Madonna with her amazing postures, because she's a yoga expert, is not really what we have to do on an everyday basis. What we do need to do is the breathing activities that yoga teaches, that is incredibly helpful and incredibly effective. So we have talked in our basic treatment guidelines, we've talked the importance of slowing your breathing down, breathing through your nose more effectively, making that part of your self-care on a regular basis. We start off by telling people 100 breaths a day. The 17,000 that you're taking is like, it's not a whole lot. So you need to practice that type of thing. So when you go into these places, whether we want to call it a silent retreat, which adds to the fact you're not talking, you're not spending a lot of energy, you're just sort of with yourself, affirmations, meditation, prayer, breathing are incredibly effective way to quiet your mind, why it is that you do, which brings up a point that I was going to mention a little bit. This is a good time. One of the, in my practice, I used to do these much, much more regularly 25 years ago. It was common. So what we'd have people do is, Thursday evening would be their last meal. And then, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday morning when they're ready to go back to work, they would break their fast. And so we would do supervised things. And, I would do it a variety of ways, whether it was with food or juices, whatever. Never did water because I felt that I wasn't close enough supervising. However, and after a period of time, I became discouraged with doing that because, in my opinion, when you're doing a cleanse, you're truly cleansing. You're taking the body. So short of going to the silent retreat that we did. So what I found is that people would not take the Friday off. They would go to work just like usual. The only thing they really did different is they didn't eat. But they did something different. But they still had their cell phone. They still watched Netflix, and they still planned. Said, no, 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 no. You're turning your phone off. You're totally taking a break from electronics. You're taking a break from everything to give your body the greatest opportunity. You want to do something? Take out a book, on a Kindle. I want you to read it on a piece of paper, reflecting off some type of electronic device, per se. So really go back to the way the body wants it to be for true cleansing. And any of the cleanses or any of the things that come up in this podcast, that's still, I think, an important part. And I think that's the part that's missing for many people who are doing a cleanse, is they're not separating themselves from life. Don't turn on the news, short of an emergency, don't have your cell phone available. Have people, if they really need to contact you, figure out a different way. But separate yourself from your everyday activities to give your mind, your physical body, a true opportunity to truly take a break from life, which is how the body will celebrate you, be very thankful to you. It will be so happy. Come whatever the length of time is that you're doing this, you'll feel that much better. Your energy will be better. You'll sleep better. Your skin will look better. Your digestion will be better. You will have more clarity of thought. Your brain fog will probably have cleared up. And yes, then you'll go back to your everyday day of life, but it shows you the opportunity that your body has for healing. And you know that if you incorporate some of these things more regularly in your life, that you would just feel better and better and better, and your quality of life will dramatically improve. So cleansing can be the stepping stone to the next level for improved quality of life. And I think that plays a great importance in what people are looking for.
Well, I mean, you're right, because I think their digital detox is just as important as like food detox, right? So, depending on, like, Brene Brown took like a 4 or 6 month detox off of social media. So you hear a lot about this. A lot of people are doing that. They're like, I'm taking a month off. And so we need to be, cognizant and being aware of what are we detoxing from, right? Where are the stressors that are affecting you and what are clogging you up? What's causing your liver? Like you started off, like, what are the environmental factors? It could be that you're on your phone all the freaking time. You're always available. Like, that's why I think people feel so good after vacations, because they haven't been on their phone and they're getting sunlight and they're just decompressing, right, at the end of the day. And I think I met this lady who lives in a town next to mine, but she I'm don't it's like, it's not offensive, but she's like a retreat nerd in a sense. Like, all she does is hop from retreat to retreat to retreat because she's like obsessed with this feeling of, really decompressing on the weekends. But what I brought up to her is that she was like chasing this, like, what are you doing that's so stressful in between retreats that you need this, it's almost like it gives her a rush, because she gets this mental clarity and she gets this ability to, but it's also about the connection. And so for her, when she is in these retreats, she's able to connect with people, and that's what she's really looking for. So there's a little bit more to the puzzle in terms of what she's cleansing for and detoxing from and whatnot. So, but retreats are definitely a fantastic way to do that. So I think what's important, when we talk about detox is what am I trying to do to support myself? What am I detoxing from? Right. Like you talk about the liver. So what are some other ways that I can help support my liver in the meantime? So like my friend that I was talking about, she's like she's doing a retreat after retreat after retreat, not necessarily addressing, the stuff in between per se, but what can we do to support our liver once we've done the cleanse or the detox?
Well, the obvious answer is, or basic treatment guidelines, because, every one of those has a very specific purpose in our body, what it is we're attempting to do. But it does bring up a point that when you're doing this cleanse, that, why not do the number one thing that we believe will support your liver, which of course is the astral effect. And then when you go to bed at night, do dry skin brushing to support your lymphatic system. And throughout the cleanse, as as we have talked about, you're only healing when you're sleeping. When you're listening to this podcast, unless you're just listening to as you're trying to fall asleep, generally you're not healing it. Because we're more in sympathetic dominant when we're in the awake state. So supporting those functions, taking an Epsom salt bath or a bath in with chamomile, something that has that sense of relaxation. So ideally in the cleanse, where you really need to be is parasympathetic. That's why we're trying to get rid of all this sympathetic dominant stuff. Why you mentioned the digital detox. Ideally, instead of the 60-40 sympathetic, parasympathetic, we'd like to go to, 90 parasympathetic and 10 sympathetic, which truly is the healing, the support, and it's an incredible opportunity for your body to go take a deep breath on its own and say, oh, finally, I'm not in this survival, flight and fright constant mode. And I have the opportunity to heal old wounds, to heal sore muscles, to heal an irritated digestive system, to heal a skin lesion that seems to be dragging on and on. So we have all these types of opportunities that are problematic for people. And what we're now looking at is the parasympathetic state, more of the, the things you've always talked about, the whole vagus nerve. Do every vagus nerve activity can think of during the cleanse, because it's a parasympathetic that affects every organ in our core. So if you want to breathe better, if you want your heart to work better, if you want your digestive to work better, your spleen and the liver, all your most internal organs, then what ultimately you're going to do is have the opportunity to support parasympathetic, aka vagus, one of the more important parasympathetic nerves, as well as all these relaxing things. Maybe if you have something where you don't necessarily have to drive to close by, you could get a lymphatic massage, or get a massage, or do a deep-seated meditation. Perhaps do a guided imagery meditation by listening to somebody's voice. There's so many different tools that you can add to enhance. But what we certainly want you to leave with is cleansing is not simply not eating. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about something that truly has the ability to heal. And so we're not only healing, because people, when they do that, what they think they're doing is all you're affecting is your digestive system. We're talking about a cleanse that affects every single system in your body. That's really how you are cleaning out, how you're taking, open the spigot of your bucket and draining some of that toxicity, if you like, that is built up over time. You've heard us in previous podcasts talk about the importance of emotional toxicity and how powerful the emotional toxicity is on causing disease, especially the last one we just did when we talked about cancer, how much emotional toxicity has a negative impact on healing from a serious illness such as cancer that we talked about previously.
I love that idea of doing an emotional detox. I'm like, to support people to be able to do that. That's amazing. I was like, when you were talking about parasympathetic, I'm like, we need to it's like, I talk about movement snacks all the time, right? So it's like, we need these parasympathetic snacks. That's what, like, I've been talking to clients about that is like, how can we start including more parasympathetic snacks in our day? Because everybody thinks about food. It's like, okay, so if you're going to like avoid food and detox and cleanse, then what can you do for your parasympathetic nervous system as a snack, right? Give your nervous system a snack, right? And that's why I'm like, I love all things vagus nerve. And so there's so many amazing things. And like when you talk about meditation, it's just, I used to not be a meditator, but I realized it's because I was stuck in survival. I was stuck in sympathetic so much that going into meditation was like, oh my God, that's stressful. That's actually more stressful because I wasn't used to it. So there's different ways to, doing the ear massage and humming, chanting. There's so many amazing things that you can do for that. Emotional detox. I need to like explore that a little bit more. Is that if have you ever heard of one before? You ever heard of an emotional detox? How could I do that?
I think that's what silent retreats are about. Silent retreat,
Yeah.
the opportunity where you're, for the most part, you're in a little sympathetic, no responsibility. Somebody's preparing a vegetarian meal, really easy to digest, so we're not having to focus a lot of our energy, which is parasympathetic, but we're trying to get our parasympathetic into every cell of our body. And the best way to do that is have gratitude. Maybe you journal, pray, you write a letter to somebody, and whether you send it or not doesn't matter. But you write the thanks for those around you who supported you through your life to get you to where it is that you are, and to show our thanks. We live in a world of so much tension, so much stress, so much discord, so much dissatisfaction, so much anger. Those are all the things that we say are below the line in the circle of emotional toxicity. And emotional toxicity, to me, is the number one cause of 60% of the cause of virtually all people's health problems. From previous traumas, learned perceptions, this emotional toxicity, and you are bombarded by this crap on social media that this person said that, and that person said this, and this person yelling about this and that, and then somebody says, "Oh, well, we should love everyone." And the next thing on the news is a war that's going on in Israel, something that happened with Travis last week that happened to proteins where gun laws, and we have people saying, "Oh, yeah, you know, everybody should have a gun to defend themselves." So one of the solutions in Tennessee is like, well, just give the teachers guns. Yeah, that's really teaching the students how to be thankful. So, we live in a great turmoil. So unfortunately, we have to find, this place of relaxation, and it's really part of self-care. I always, as you know, one of our most important and difficult BTGs is have to do something for fun. Well, when you do something for fun, you're supposed to be parasympathetic. If you're doing something for fun that's sympathetic, it's probably not fun. It's probably adding more stress to your life. And it's like, no, do something that doesn't involve your brain and your mind that you can drift off. And if it's, right now, it's this beautiful sunny day here, just go out and sit in the sun and soak it in, appreciate the electrons and that photosensitivity that you're getting from the sun. Doing that, people say, well, I don't have time. Well, if you don't have time for that, fortunately, when are you going to have time? You're going to have time for disease when you get that, say. So, we're really all about quality of life. We're all about enhancing that. Take some of this stuff off your plate. You're going to realize that everything you're doing isn't so important. You think it's important because it's for self-esteem or whatever reason that you do it. Yeah, those are important, but the reality is, you know, 20, as we've talked about with the Dr. Evans did about this little 8-minute video on walking, titled 23 and a half hours. That's my motto, at least. So 23 and a half hours, do whatever the hell you want. But 1/2 hour, do what you need to do what you want to do. That's an everyday thing. That's not just what we're talking about here, a cleanse for 3 or 5 or 7 days.
Going along with the time, how many times a year would you recommend somebody detox or use a cleanse? Just in the summer, like every other month during the summer months, because that's the idea, or
Well, the goal is that the cleanse is the initiation for you to do something every day. And if you do something every day, your bucket won't fill up. If you only do it once a year, your bucket's going to be well overflowing, and you're going to find that you didn't do long. It's like, why do we go on vacation? We go on vacation to try and get away from things. Try and go on vacation every day, at least in your mind. We don't have to physically go somewhere necessarily to go on vacation. In fact, some of the best vacations are called staycations, where you actually don't go anywhere. But you tell somebody that you're gone, which means you can turn your phone off and don't have to do things, and you can quiet your mind, be more parasympathetic per se. So as you just suggested, take parasympathetic snacks, get part of those, on a regular basis. But yes, we live a life, we follow the 80-20 rule, try and do everything that you can 80% of the time, and 20% of the time, that's what it is. So we do get into episodes and weddings and preparing for anniversaries, Christmas, holidays, where we stretch the limit a little bit. People will say, so that I just need a little boost here. So that would be a perfect time to do something like for 3 days, sort of get you re-motivated, we'll say again, to go back to your everyday cleanse. That I think is the most appropriate on a mini level, because the more you do, if you do 1%, if you make 1% per month in anything that you do, by the end of the year, you've made a 12% difference. By the end of a decade, you change things 100%. That's a whole lot, as opposed to waiting until there's a problem and I say, oh, I should change my life. I should change my diet per se, which is one of the hardest things for people to do, because they're so accustomed to what it is that they do diet wise. They can't see the forest for the trees. Well, so how can I possibly change this? Unless they're, stamped with condition X that says you have to change. Said, okay, I'll change.
People that go on detoxes typically use food, but if I'm going to go like on a digital detox or emotional detox or whatever I'm going to choose, what should I expect to feel when I go through one? Because I know like some people get sick. Some people feel like really bad after like the second day, because you're saying like 3 days or whatever. On the second day, they feel really crummy. What are some expectations that I should have if I'm going through a detox or a cleanse?
Well, typically, as you said, the most common one that people do, and I suspect people listening to this thought we're mostly talking about food and that kind of thing. So if you haven't eaten for 24 hours, your brain's saying, excuse me, where's the fuel here? What's happening? How come I'm hungry, per se? And so, of course, what you're doing during this fast is you're drinking water or juice or whatever it is you're doing, and that hopefully will satisfy that particular component. What you would expect is hopefully some form of discharge, that now the body has the opportunity to focus some of its energy on. And so whether you start blowing your nose a lot, or you're peeing a lot more, or maybe you end up with even a bout of diarrhea, from just the body, trying to rapidly eliminate before it realizes that things are going to shut down again, and you're going to go back to your old way of life. From food, from a blood sugar perspective, some people may get a headache. So you have symptoms, and the good thing about that, in one way, is to make that realize, as we know in biological medicine, your symptoms are not your problem. It's literally your body telling you that something's not right. So if you suddenly are, having to blow your nose 10 times during this cleanse, what it says is you got a lot of stuff in there that you don't even realize is in there, and it's always there. And why haven't you been doing your nebulizer regularly to try and break that up to get rid of it, in general? Or your muscles are suddenly not as stiff, or when you get up in the morning, you don't feel as sore. Oh my God, my lymphatic system is actually doing something more. Maybe I need to keep focusing on helping that lymph move, so I don't have so much congestion in my musculoskeletal system, specifically my joints. So the symptoms are varied and many. We could probably do a laundry list, and any symptom that you could imagine, and it seems to be that most people will associate with being uncomfortable. And of course, they think it's the fast that's doing it. No, the fast isn't doing it. It's your body doing it, because it's finally been given the opportunity to clear out something that it couldn't clear out. which is why your brain can think better and your digestion system will work better and your energy will be better, et cetera, et cetera.
That brings up a that's was one of the things I was thinking about is last weekend I did like 4 hours of self-care, we'll call it. But it's like I did all this vagus nerve support. I was doing cold face plunging. I did it with my sauna, and then I went to compression with my legs. And I did some vagus nerve stimulation, and I did some deep breathing. I did a meditation. I went for a walk. And can I just tell you, the next day I felt like $1,000,000. I woke up, I had zero pain in my body and no stiffness whatsoever. I like woke up right out of bed, had a great workout, had like no lymphatic congestion whatsoever. And it was like, okay, I need to do this more often. And so, that was like a wake up. I'm like, I don't know if I'll always have 4 hours of interrupted time, but like that was a really cool wake up call to know that, like I basically, in a way, I gave myself an opportunity to detox my body, and I did in a 4 hour span. But yeah, so in terms of supplementation, because it's the main, like we're detoxing or cleansing the liver. That's the main organ we're after, right? The kidneys, essentially.
Yes.
Right. So are there supplements or are there like herbs or anything like other than castor oil pack or nebulizing? Like, is there anything in particular that I should nebulize if I'm going to support the liver? Or is there any like herbs or supplements that you would suggest to support the liver?
There are, but I would suggest if we're doing something, especially if you haven't done this before, that you don't take anything. See what your body is capable of doing. And the reason we're taking herbs, the reason we're doing supplements is they say, well, we'll support the process more. Let's see what your body can do on its own. And I think that's something that most people don't appreciate is that we have this amazing body. We have a physical form, but we have a brain and we have all these organ systems that perform functions for 80 years. I mean, think about how many times your heart is going to beat before the moment of, 5 weeks post-conception when your heart is already starting to form till you die 80 years later. And so, we have this particular aspect of it's just an amazing structure that has been created through God, and the particular aspect of, how we've evolved to be such an amazing machine. So yes, people will say, well, if you take, dandelion, you do artichoke, you do berberis, those are all great herbs to further support, your liver. But, wouldn't the ideal be to just have your physiology do what it's normally supposed to do and do things which will support that, which, is external, which is why I personally would prefer people only do the basic treatment guidelines, not take additional things during that to support that. Because if you think you need to do that, what you're trying to do is you're trying to empty your bucket too quickly. And those are the people more likely to experience adverse effects, because if you let the body's own physiology heal you, it won't basically spill the bucket too quickly. It'll do it at the rate which the body has the ability to get it out of your system. So that would be the topic in different podcasts that we could do, saying, okay, so now that we've done the cleanse, we've got it started, are there things that you could do on a support basis to just keep supporting the liver, to keep supporting the lymphatic system, to keep supporting the kidney, over and above the basics of the probiotic, perhaps some vitamin D, some vitamin B, some minerals, which are kind of our everyday nutrients that I think everybody potentially can benefit from. But then you can get into the specifics, and maybe a future podcast would be the idea of what's a half decent regular supplementation quality of the supplements. And if you buy something on Amazon, is it just as good as something you buy at Whole Foods or something you buy from a professional company? Because quality control, in reality, supplements is pretty much everything. You could be taking something that basically is a bunch of fillers. It really has no nutrients in it. Oh, but it was cheap. It only cost me $2. There's probably a reason it cost you $2. Whereas the next one, same thing. Well, it's 10. Well, does 10 minutes better? Well, there's one, if it has something in it, it is. And there's some, literally they've done, and there was a fiber supplement sold years ago. And when they analyzed it, it was sawdust. They literally put sawdust in a pill and sold it as a fiber supplement. Yeah, it's fiber. Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's a lot of that kind of stuff that has gone on. And unfortunately, the supplement industry, with over 200 plus companies of making things, pretty much sell anything you want on the internet. There's nobody regulating it. So that's a whole other topic that we would need to get into.
A client of mine was asking about glutathione, so we kind of went down that rabbit hole. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of options and a lot of different price points and whatnot. So, yeah, cheaper is not necessarily always better, especially when you look at the ingredients and whatnot. But okay, so one more question I have is, how do I know if my liver is detoxing?
You don't. You don't. You don't. The only way you know it's detoxing is you don't have any symptoms. You're not getting headaches, or you're not getting skin rashes, or your PMS is better. So it's not like, oh, I do that and my liver is detoxing. The great thing about the liver, and it's the only organ that would do this, you could cut half the liver out and it'll grow back. It's the only organ that will.
That's so cool.
So people who have what we say adenomas, which are cancers, localized cancers, which we talked about last time. So there's such a thing as a localized cancer. But you can cut it out, and 6 months later, the liver will come back. And when they do liver transplants on little kids, you could take an adult liver and cut it into 10 pieces, and put it into 10 different kids, because it'll grow to the appropriate size. So that's one organ that you don't have to worry about. You couldn't put a heart of an adult into a newborn, because it's just too big per se. But with the liver, you can make it the right size so that will grow back per se. People say, well, I check my liver enzymes. Well, the liver is so important that literally the liver enzymes, so-called liver enzymes, liver function tests are actually a better test, a better word. You need over 80% of the liver to be involved before those even change. So you could theoretically survive with 20% healthy liver cells. Fortunately, with cirrhosis and hepatitis and, you have all this fibrosis and scarring, you don't have 20% of it less, which is why they have the consequences of those diseases that end up happening as the liver fails. And so, yes, every organ is important. Life is not compatible without a brain or a heart, but it's also not compatible without your liver.
Funny, last night, it's funny you say that, because last night I was watching this new Netflix show, like Emergency New York City or something. Anyway, lady was going into liver failure, and I didn't realize that basically once it goes into liver failure, you can only, like, you start losing your mind, you can't remember things, and then you basically die within like 2 days or something. Like, you die really, really quick once you're in liver failure, so you have to get a new one in there like ASAP, because otherwise, I didn't realize like it deteriorated that fast. But I mean, that fast in the sense that once you're in liver failure, it took you a long time to get there. But I was like, oh, that was it. I didn't realize that. And then it's funny because this lady, like, they asked her some questions, like, how many kids do you have and how old are they? And she couldn't remember the ages. So they're like, we need to move fast. So it's fascinating. Liver is really interesting. It's fascinating. It's that major filter. It's super important. Take care of your liver, people.
People know about liver is if you drink alcohol, it's not good for the liver. That's about the extent. Yet it does over 500. It has over 500 different properties, and it does over 500 different tasks. What's it essential for? Which is why when it fails, you have 500 things that aren't working, and no wonder you deteriorate so rapidly. Like, how could you possibly survive if suddenly 500 of the functions don't work? So you can't possibly maintain life when you're losing that many functions. We think of the heart as a function: controls blood flow, controls blood pressure, and puts blood around. Well, think of that. That's one. The liver has over 500 of these things that it does. Pretty phenomenal.
It's a pretty cool organ. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be kinder to my liver. And now, well, then the thing, like we said in the last podcast, is that drinking is definitely a risk factor for many, many things, from cirrhosis of the liver, but cancer and whatnot. But how Health Canada right now is only recommending 2 drinks a week. Alcohol is just not good. It's just not good for you. Thing is, neither is stress, neither is all these other things. So we need to take a look at the bigger picture at the end of the day.
That put all the blame on alcohol because it's, the biggest trick with alcohol is why do you drink it? It's the question. It
It's emotions. What happened to you? Yep.
comes down to you need an emotional detox. You need an emotional cleanse. That's how you need to deal with your traumas.
Agreed.
And, so we won't blame the poor liver because it's doing a hell of a lot of work for us. Let's look at the other components of why we're doing the behaviors that the liver is not so happy with. But just think of people who I'm always amazed when I have a patient who has cirrhosis, say, they're 54 years old. When do you start drinking? Oh, I don't know, 13, 14. Wow, you drank all that for 40 years and only now it's failing? It's like, oh my God, that organ, is doing so many good things for you. And, it's like unfortunate we're in stage now, but, we don't need to be there. And the people listening to this podcast are not there, thankfully,
No.
because they have a little more awareness of what it takes to try and stay at least on the positive side of health.
But at the end of the day, give your liver a little love today, just as you're listening to this, right? So there's so many things. The fact that it does 500 different things. Give your liver some love, right? So just hold your hand there. Just say, thank you, liver. I appreciate you. You're doing awesome.
Where it is. When you just hold your hand basically on just the bottom of your rib cage and onto your belly, right under that rib cage there is on the right side is where your liver sits.
It's huge. It's big. It's like, and the thing is that like one of the assessments that I do is I actually have people just grab underneath their rib cage, take a deep inhale in, exhale, and we go right down the rib cage. And then they notice when they get to that, last floating rib at the bottom, it's a little tender. And I'm like, hello, say hello to your liver and give that a little love because it's trying to tell you something, right? So when we start using our body and tuning into our body, that's, a simple way. But just literally putting your hand there and giving a little warmth, a little love, it can go a long way. So do you have any other parting thoughts on detoxing or cleansing?
I don't know. We always cover so much ground, it seems, on these podcasts. So it's like, what's the parting thing? If you haven't got the picture yet, castor oils, packs are your friend. They really are your friend. Talk to them nicely. As Julie just said, talk to your liver. It's doing you a heck of a lot of good things.
They're a good jump start if you're that person that's struggling with some, inflammation in your body, bloating, whatever. It's a great jump start to get you going into doing more parasympathetic snacks, right? I'm coining it. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first. We're going to start coining parasympathetic snacks. Start doing that, and we're going to help heal lots of parts of your body. So thanks so much for listening. We appreciate your support. If you have any questions or any ideas for podcasts, please send them in to us. Our contact details are in the show notes. And also, if you're listening to this on YouTube, make sure that you do subscribe for future podcasts. And speaking of future podcasts, next podcast we're going to talk about is how to prepare for summer. So summer is right around the corner, and what can we do to prepare for when we go on those summer vacations? And we'll talk a little bit about sunblock and all that wonderful. There's a lot of information on sunblock. And any other topics you want to talk about? Any other sneak peeks you want to chat about, Dad, on the next podcast about the summer?
No, just wait. We'll be surprised.
You'll be surprised. You'll get some ahas, and that's what I'm hearing. Whenever there's usually one or two nuggets that you get from our podcast, so you'll get a couple more from our next podcast. So thanks so much. Thank you for the support, and we'll see you on next time.
Yeah.